what the cancellation of the quadratic divergences look like. If the particles don't have to be colored, if there's all sorts of things which could be making the Higgs natural, but which are somehow a more clever idea that we haven't come up with yet, then inevitably anything that touches the Higgs must also generate these operators. These dimension 6 operators that are totally invariant over every possible symmetry, and these things can be seen these effects can be seen at H factory, and you also, of course, probe for top partners at 100 TeV. So, for instance, stop limits at 100 TeV. In fact, things have gotten better since this plot was made for me by these guys. The limit for just direct stop reduction, limit for superpartners in general, first two generations in Galinos, goes up to 10, 15, 20 TeV in 100 TeV collisions. But as many of you know, direct stop reduction through S-channel stop reduction is a lot worse, even at the LHC. This here in this plot goes up to about 7 TeV. Sort of the more recent things that they're telling me, slightly better techniques, towards around 9 TeV or so. So that's almost a factor of 10 improvement on the reach relative to the LHC. And that takes the fine tuning. If we don't see anything, if we don't see them from apartment 100 to apartment 10,000. We have never seen apartment 10,000 tuning anywhere else in nature. We can't shrug our shoulders and say it's compatible with the look-elsewhere effect anymore. It's not compatible with the look-elsewhere effect anymore. It's 100 times worse than anything we've seen anywhere else, except perhaps with the cosmological ones. Anyway, this is... And coming back to what you could see at a Higgs factory, if there's anything in the world at all that gets rid of the Higgs quadratic divergence, if there's any particle X, colored, uncolored, whatever it is, the fact that this diagram exists forces that diagram to exist. Okay? Just the theorem. And this gives you a particular dimension 6 coupling between the Higgses that you cannot possibly avoid, and that gives you percent level deviations in the couplings of the Higgses. Just disease to everybody, which again should be visible at the Higgs factory, and you hope to produce the particles directly at so I don't know and finally, if we do see new, so that's in the pessimistic case where we don't see any new physics at the LHC. If we do see new physics at the LHC, the fact that we haven't seen it yet means that it's unlikely we're going to see the whole spectrum. Let's say it's natural SUSY, so the third generation is lighter than the first two generations. Okay, great, we'll see a 700 GeV, 800 GeV stop. Where are the first two generations? We'd love to know where the first two generations are. We're not going to produce 4 or 5 TeV first two generation sports at the LHC. Okay, of course we will produce them at 800 TeV per Okay, so that's settling the ultimate fate of naturalness. Either you don't see anything and you make things 100 times worse than anything we've seen before, which is 100 times worse than anything that can be explained reasonably with the look-elsewhere effect, or you actually produce the particles and see much more of the whole picture of what's going on. And finally, I won't spend much time on it, but the point is obvious. We know that if you believe in the Wick miracle, the simplest version of the Wick miracle involving dark matter annihilating through standard model gauge interactions does not give you dark matter masses at 100 GeV. It gives you dark matter masses at 1, 2, 3 TeV. So it was always a very reasonable picture for dark matter for it to be standard model electroweak charged particles that weighed 1, 2, 3 TeV. That is not ideal for the LHC, which is good at making them up to 300 or 400 GeV. At least, of course, if we have big gaps in the spectrum and cascade decays, life is different. But just for directly producing them, that's not what's possible at the LHC. So you go to 100 TeV collisions is what you need to proton-proton collisions is what you need to produce 1, 2, 3 TeV weakly interacting particles that may or may not be dark. Even in the sort of most pessimistic case where it's homogeneous. As with the LHC, if you have a better situation where you have cascade decay and so on, it's much more powerful. All right. Okay, so I'll skip the opportunities for flavor in CP biology. I say it's a bonus, it doesn't have to be there, but it's possible to think about probing the origin of flavor in 100 TeV collisions in a way that's impossible to imagine at the LHC, simply because the physics couldn't be there at the LHC compatible with what we know about flavor change neutral curves, but it could be there at 100 TeV collisions. Okay, So I'll repeat again that, that this is, I think, a vision for the experimental future of the field that, as I said, revolves around addressing one of the two very big scale questions that we've been driven to early in the 21st century. And for this particular project, this is something that more and more people around the world are thinking about and thinking about seriously. And if you're, I've said this many times before, you sound like a broken record, but if you're someone who's 25, 30 years old, this is your future. Okay? This is smaller scale things, whatever people tell you, whatever your elders tell you. I don't want to be too stark about it, but if this field is actually going to exist in a deep and powerful way, as it has for centuries before it, we're going to need something like this. It's not going to subsist on small ball. Okay? And this is important to remember, and it's important to the good news is that while our country seems to lack the vision to do anything about this right now, some people around the world are thinking about it seriously. Europe is thinking about it seriously. China is beginning to think about it seriously. And so, if you're interested, please jump into the existing efforts. There's the Future Circular Glider effort at CERN, as well as the new initiative we have in Beijing, the Center for Future High Energy Physics. And what I'd like to say about this CERN Beijing is its #1 goal is to change its name as quickly as possible and get rid of the word future. It's this coming year or two is a very, very important period for the development of these ideas, especially in China. So if you're interested, please get involved, come visit the center, get in touch with any of us, me, Tao, any of the other people that you know, and we'll set up a meeting. Okay, so that was my plan talking about the experimental future. I want to say a few things about the theoretical future, but let me not say anything about that. So let me just end by saying something that I said at the very start. At least in my view, the scientific questions that are at stake in our field today are the most difficult and profound ones that we've faced since the birth of relativity and quantum mechanics. Because most of what transpired between the birth of relativity and quantum mechanics and now was the full, deep realization of how much those principles could do. Okay? We extrapolated them from the hydrogen atom, all the way to distances 1,000 times smaller than the proton, energy scales, early times, if gravitational wave signals hold up, which are 6 orders of magnitude from the Planck scale. It's completely absurd that these principles hold sway over this vast range of scales. So they work. That's fantastic. But it makes even more stark how strange it is that that's the kind of universe we got to begin with. And that the real issues in the 21st century are figuring out where this wonderful structure came from to begin with. So that's why I can make such a grandiose statement, because I believe it's true. And the scale of our vision and our ambition has to be commensurate to the task. So thank you very much.
Nima is always scheduled to be the last speaker.
Thank you, Keith. I really thank Keith.
No. That was called, at the agencies we call that a supplement. And it was authorized by the boss, Towns.
Thank God I was here when you mess up.
I'll tell you, at the agencies, when there's no more money, there's no more money. But as you said, it's a big space time. That's fine. But some of us have to catch airplanes, so we got to do this quickly. Yeah, quick question.
Okay. You said we should be thinking about limitations of quantum mechanics. I would have thought the other way around, because if the bicycle results hold and we decide that we have inflation, isn't that we understand kind of how quantum field theory works and we
my goodness, yes.
together.
Sure. No. I was very careful with what I said. It's not any application of quantum mechanics to cosmology. Far from it. And in fact, indeed, even before BICEP, I mean, all the other successes of inflation are a fantastic testament. It's one of the most amazing things in all of science that you take quantum fluctuations, you blow them up, and turn them into all the structure that we see in our world today. So, what I was talking about with limitations of quantum mechanics is something much, much more esoteric and subtle. It has nothing to do with inflation, nothing to do with those things. It has to do with the strange feature of our accelerating universe today. Okay? Not inflation. That's something that strange feature with our accelerating ethos today. Actually, it has an interesting relation to inflation, which I'll come back to in a second. But the difficulty is that quantum mechanics needs something in order to talk about precise observations. It's been very fruitful in physics to think about the quantities that can be in principle precisely measured, because they're what physics should be about, and they're what theories should be about. So that's why I paid a lot in quantum mechanics to realize that you can only talk about position or momentum. You can't talk about position and momentum. And despite the fact that in everyday life it's irrelevant, it's a profound conceptual point to realize that it's one or the other. Okay, so yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. What the difficulty is that in order to talk about anything precisely in quantum mechanics, you have to have infinitely large measuring apparatuses. Otherwise, the apparatuses themselves quantum mechanically fluctuate. So quantum mechanics forces you to divide the world into two pieces, an infinite piece and a finite piece that's being looked at. And in an accelerated universe, we have only access to a finite amount of stuff inside our cosmological horizon, and that division of the world into two parts becomes impossible. So that's a very deep conceptual puzzle. And it's the first place where quantum mechanics, not that it's wrong, but it starts being impotent. It doesn't tell you what you're supposed to do.
Okay, Tal has offered one quick question with one quick answer. Okay. That's super wide. How specifically can we help? What's the call to action?
Well, I think the biggest way for people, the most important way to help is to invest in it intellectually, and to actually think about it, and think about what it could do. Those of us who have just started thinking a little bit about what a factor of 7 or 10 in energy is going up to, well, actually, for precision Higgs physics, a lot more effort has gone into that. So there, I think we have a pretty good idea of what kind of things are at stake. But what we can learn in 100 TeV collisions is something where I think there's still like room for interesting surprises, interesting possibilities, interesting pieces of the physics. So I think the number one thing is to actually believe that it might be possible and spend time thinking about it. Now, I think if there's an absolute prerequisite for these things to happen anywhere in the world is that our communities should believe that it's exciting and that it's important, and there's enough people who say that it's exciting and it's important. These things, can never be legislated from the top down. You have to believe that it's exciting and important, and so that's, I think, the most important thing to do is decide, because it's not going to be easy. I mean, no matter what, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to decide if this is what you want to do with your life. If you have to wait 20 or 30 years to get data from the Higgs factory or from 100 TeV proton-proton collisions. But so that's it. I mean, I think I would really say at this very early stage, we need to sort people into people who are going to willing to put their back into it and people who aren't. But I think there's enough people who are willing to put their back into it and also the sort of geopolitical machinations are in sufficient an interesting state of flux right now that it can be pushed in a very positive direction. I can tell you that very, very high level Chinese government officials know about this, know about it. It's not a big secret. We had this huge event back in Beijing, 8 famous people coming, 1,000 students coming to hear what they have to say about accelerators, newspaper articles, stuff like that. So it's starting to get out there. And no one has said, that's ridiculous, that's ludicrous, it's stupid. Obviously, no one has said, yeah, go for it. Obviously not. But the reaction is not, you're an idiot for even talking about this. I think that's progress. I think the chances of it happening, I don't know what they are, but I would not be spending my own time on it, which is limited by both current things and mortality. I would not be spending my own time on it if I thought the chances were 1%. I think they're 1.1%. And we can also do something about it now.
Okay, we really will. Thanks, Nima, again.